just got iNaturalist here, and as we're like searching for Old Man's Beard, we can. This is on the main Explorer tab. This is like searching all the observations across the whole world. I search for Old Man's Beard. So I've got my dog in the background growling away. And you can type in Wellington City here. It's kind of interesting. You see different results on this to if you go into filters and you type in Wellington. And I get this Wellington WGNZ, which I think is the good one. I'll update that search. And you see I sort of got the, oh no, one of them is quite tight to this boundary. I mean, that's not bad either. But there's one that's actually got the city outline around here.
Oh, right.
It's actually getting the right Wellington or the right place. It's kind of an important there. Anyway, you've got all these filters, and you can. I was kind of filtering by date range before as well, and you can kind of. So this is just Old Man's Beard within Wellington. And the other thing is like whether it's research grade or not. I don't know why it's got verifiable and research grade. Verifiable says it's eligible. But it's basically once an expert's gone and checked it, then it's verifiable, I think. So if we want to see all of the ones people have reported, then we can untick that. Update search. That might just give us a few more that maybe don't have photos or aren't kind of authorized ones, but they've been reported. So we've got sort of that many Old Man's Beards, across Wellington. We can zoom in, we can click on individual ones. So that's sort of the, who reported it, the core search facility. We can go and then search for suburbs. I think I set up Northland. Yeah, it's Northland, Wellington, New Zealand. It's just giving you the box. We can do it in the filter and see if it gives us anything different. Sometimes it gives you the box, sometimes it gives you the actual outline.
Yes, right.
Yes, that's got more of the actual kind of council boundaries. So when Tim Park took me through this a little bit, he said, if you're going to name like a Wellington suburb, you should be taking the council data for the outlines of like where the suburb is, and the same if you're going to name a reserve or a park, then you want to use the data from the Wellington city maps for the boundaries. So that's quite cool. It gives us like all of Northland. But then, there's lots of suburbs that aren't on here at the moment. So how do we go and, create a new suburb? So you go here, you can go to places. Try and find it first. I don't know, what should we do? Potato. And it doesn't have that, so we can add a new place. Then we need to go to the WCC suburb boundaries. So this is actually linked from our OMB3 page. Let's find it. That's probably here. Yeah, so on the OMB3, we got under volunteering, under start a group administering iNaturalist. Setting up a new place. So you've got the suburbs. Then you can go to Council Maps website. So you've got suburbs on there. Just a bit of a shortcut to find the right maps. And then that's got 57 suburbs. So we'd have to go up and find Tatai. And what we even need to do is go and filter by suburb. type there, and then that's given us one match there. And when we download, then by default it's going to give us all suburbs, so we need to toggle the filters on here, and we can go and download it in. I think we need KML format. iNaturalist. Yeah, we've got KML. So over here we do a type. It's a WG NZ or something. Our parent. Wellington. Wellington City, is it Wellington WG? I thought Wellington WG. Yeah, KML state, it's still generating that. So then we'd upload the KML here. Place type. I looked through this before, I couldn't see anything that sort of said a suburb. Maybe it's a district.
Yep. I think. A zone?
Zones, yeah.
Zone seems to be what's coming up for when I looked up Northland.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
Choose files, that KML files there now. I think we want to allow checklists. That's we can make, there's some sort of list you can make. Decided that was a good thing to have potentially. So that place should come up now. Yeah, 1, 2, Z. So now if we go back to home page, search for old and beard and type Wellington NZ. That's funny, that's given me the box, but if I go here,
yeah, to the place filter.
WGNZ gives me
there you go.
boundaries. But there's no augmented beard there. What's happening? Maybe nothing to this one as well.
Update search maybe? Is it gonna work? Surely something's there.
Maybe it takes a little while when you first set up.
Oh yeah, maybe it's too fresh.
Something like that. Yeah. So then you can actually go and set up projects. Right, so project, there's different types of project. There's like traditional projects, which let you have observation fields as part of them, but you have to add the actual observation to the project. Like by default, the project has nothing in it until you add observations, and then you can add observation fields. And they seem to be moving away from that a little bit towards what they're calling collection projects, which are basically a place and maybe a time frame and maybe a species that you're interested in. And you don't have to add anything explicitly to the project. It basically picks up anything that already matches that and will continue into the future based on your time frame. And you've got some more kind of funky things on those collection projects like leaderboards and set up. I guess especially like we've got like there's a Wellington BioBlitz or something coming up soon on iNaturalist, so everyone in Wellington can go and record observations over a weekend in this project, so that will kind of pick up anything in Wellington over that weekend. So that's going to be a collection project. And then you've sort of got umbrella projects that can be collections of other projects that we could have, like an OMB3 Wellington. It's a collection of OMB3 Tai, Northland, and all the places across Wellington. So there's ways of setting up projects around that if you want, or you can just it sort of gives you something a bit more permanent, I guess. than just looking up Old Man's Beard in Northland all the time. Permanent project, and you can start to have some build a bit more community around it. Discussions on the project, and it brings it together as a bit more of a cohesive sort of whole. Then we've got observations. So yeah, that's basically the bread and butter of iNaturalist. Taking a photo, uploading it. And observations can have fields on them. So just find one I've done here. So this one's actually in 4 projects. I think I added it to 2 of these when I first did it, and the other one's just collection project, it's just shown up in. And there's observation fields in 2 places. One is on what they call a traditional project, the Wellington Old Man's Beard sighting. And that has like some fixed observation fields you can fill in. Or you can just sort of go down here and just add your own observation fields. So these are all like default ones from the other project, but the ones I really use most is the pest controlled. I'm using that for the maps. We've got one here called professional assistance required, which is if it's on a site where we can't tackle it ourselves, it's got health and safety risks or some other sort of risk that needs a contractor to come in and do it. Then we tick that one, and we're then referring those on to Wellington City Council and giving them a map of where we need professional assistance with it. I've set up this follow-up field. I haven't particularly used it yet. There's so much I should be following up. It's like, yeah, so you can basically put in a timestamp in there when you think you should go back and do it.
Right.
And ultimately, you can sort of export this data and show a map of ones you should be following up, or call an API to, I don't know, go and alert your phone, or say a number of ways you can use these fields.
Cool.
Quite general purpose, but they're yeah, it needs people to go in and use the fields consistently to be valuable. And then once you sort of got all that, and you start going, oh, actually, it'd be really nice to be notified of any new observations that come up every day. And over here, so they're setting up notifications. So it takes you to the wrong page. Get notifications.
Right, so the
Right to the text on your homepage. You go to your homepage, and down here, I've got my subscriptions. I've been finding that when I had just Clematis Vitalba, or I tried just Clematis, it wasn't sending me any emails with those. That's like a taxon and a place. This one is working, so I'm getting updated every day with all the observations in Wellington, which isn't too bad at the moment. It's probably sort of, I don't know, 30 to 60 a day. But like I'm getting a daily email of it. And it's quite interesting to see what's around you. We see these all around Wellington. Found evening moths and whatever dusky scuttleries, like that. Dusky scuttleries. So you sort of learn by just getting all the observations and everything. But it comes through as an email daily. Would be nice to kind of work out why some of these other ones aren't working at some stage. Maybe raise a flag on the community forum. But for now, I'm happy to just ones in Wellington City. And then you can like export them. So if I go back to Explorer, you can export a project, or I could just go and export all the Old Man's Beard So still Northland, shall we? Actually, I'll do it from the filter because it seems to give me a better outline. And then from the filters, we can just download that. Gives us some options for this query. Then options for what we export. I don't normally export the taxon, like I know it's old man's beard. I need some of the basics and some of the geo stuff. I tend to just leave that ticked. Then I want some of the fields, like I might do is pest controlled, for example. There you go. Let's just do all the fields for now. Anything funky, then we can go and create that export. That will download a CSV file of all the observations that match that. I'll go and download that. I've got a zip file, just unzip it. And I've got it on my other screen there. So I've just been using Google Maps today. It'd be kind of interesting to see what you've been using, Rob. But from here, I might just go and create a new map. Northland OMB, and import CSV file. Firstly, it's going to ask for the position, so it's using latitude and longitude. Sweet, just go for that. Title, I'm not sure this makes any difference. Actually. I was picking as the pest control. Maybe it could be a better time. So it's just putting in that CSV file, loading it up into a new layer. You can have multiple layers if you want. Just change it to satellite view. So that's all items. Then we change it from uniform style to style by data column. Doing this test controlled. And then we got, so yes, we might want to change the color to green. Yeah, and I did have a tick here somewhere. There we go. It might be, I might have had to load that as a custom icon. I can't quite remember it. And then the other ones we might just do not applicable. Oh, no, it's going to be a red. Across. And I normally make this red as well, but I don't know, I might make it orange. Do an orange cross. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, probably a no if we're not sure. And then not applicable, you might do orange again. Just depends whether people have entered values on. By default, I think if you don't enter a value, it goes to no value. Yeah, and then not applicable is entered not applicable.
Right.
So see, there's a little bit of green there somewhere, a couple up there. Oh, we should have some more on. We should update the working bee we had. Eh?
Yeah.
Some on Pembroke Road.
Yeah.
So yeah, then we get a map. I think John Unwin's updated those with some that he's done.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we should get some of that. And then you can kind of visualize. And you might go, okay, let's prioritize. You know, Taya Marangi first, and then we'll work across Northland in this order. We've sort of done that to some extent in Arrow Valley. Sort of, I guess we're coming from the west to some extent. Sorry, from the east and working westwards. But then there's some areas that we've just sort of, they're close to reserves, so we've gone in and done those bits. So it gives us a rough order of how we're tackling the old man's beard.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I was wanting to show on the iNaturalist and Google Maps.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you had something involved on how you might then pick up that export.
Yeah.
Do I need to copy it into the chat?
Pardon me, sorry?
Do I need to send you that export somehow?
Yeah, sure. Yep, go for that. That'd be great. Cool. So, should probably go and share my screen. So yeah, I can just show you. There's just a simple, simple. There's a GIS software that is freeware. I think it's open source, which is what I use to make that map, which could do something pretty similar to what you're doing with Google Maps. Depends how much time you want to sink into doing GIS discovery. There's endless opportunities with that sort of stuff. So I guess what you get out of it is dependent on what really you want, but I can just show how to do a similar thing, I guess, to begin with. And yeah. So if I share my screen now, cool. And that hopefully is showing now.
Yep.
Okay, so this is it's called QGIS, and it's essentially just an open source GIS software. GIS has always got a lot of different a lot of different features. So if you haven't used one before, it can be a little bit overwhelming with all the different interfaces. It's got based on Python script, so there's bits and pieces where if you're not familiar with that sort of thing, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But for making simple maps, it's actually easier than it might look. You just got to get familiar with it. So you can do a few different cool things. So we've got plugins. If I go to plugins here, I can install a few different things. And what I've just done is put in quick maps, and it's got quick map services. I've already installed it here, but that'll pop up. And that plug puts an additional plugin to the software called Quick Map Services, which you can get to through the web. And that actually just gives sort of different maps from a whole lot of different providers. So at the moment, I've got an Esri satellite base map loaded in there, which is here. If I wanted to switch that, I could go, let's say we want to go Google. I'm going to go for the Google Road map that you see on Google. And that's it there. A few different things. There's a lot of them available, so it's really what you'd prefer. Another good one can be possibly like terrain-based maps. So if I went Esri topo map, you can kind of start getting the contours around the city and that sort of thing, showing like you have with topo maps. Actually, that's starting to hide it the more you zoom in, which isn't too helpful. And then another one you can do is, have you gone to the Lens data service beforehand?
I've changed my stuff to coordinates, so I think I've done Lens itself.
Yeah, okay. So if I'll actually just go share all my screens just quickly. Where am I here? So if I go to data.lens, I think it's .nz. No, it's probably Gov, sorry. So it's the Land Information New Zealand data service. and you can go to, for instance, there, if you search up Topo 50, they've got the Topo maps. If you create an account here, you can actually go to their services, and that will give you a URL that references this actual data service. You need to create what's called an API key, which you need to have a login for. But as far as I'm aware, it's free, and if you wanted to use it for publishing or that sort of thing, you need to reference as necessary, and those bits of information are available for whatever maps you might go into. But yeah, I've linked that in. We could possibly go to that another time, a bit more detail, but actually linked that in to allow me to use some of those maps. So that's available by going in just to the layers here.
Can you just load that Wellington urban?
Yeah. So layer, add layer, and then add a WMS layer.
Okay.
And then Wellington urban.
I think that's the one that we're using for some of the machine learning work, where it shows.
Yeah, that probably is.
That is 0.0.
So that was Wellington City Council's
aerial
photos. So they're available through that portal. So if I click add there, that'll drop in that aerial imagery.
Cool.
And it just loads it in, but it just loads exactly the data that's available. So as you can see, that's only for the Wellington area.
Yeah.
The setting up the API key is, I believe if you want to go to the services, there we are. You log in now.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And you can just get a key there. And once you've created a key, it will automatically pop it into the URL for you, and you can connect it that way. But in any case, more than enough is available with the quick maps I've found. So
yeah,
you can just play through those to begin with, and that's absolutely heaps. But yeah, so whatever way, get a map on there.
Yeah.
And then let's zoom into Northland here. If you wanted to, you could even add in some of those shapes that you had, that like for Hataitai, like you were having beforehand.
Yeah.
If you had one of those available and you downloaded it in the way you had, you could go layer, add a layer, and add a vector layer, and then just click this button here and just pick wherever you've saved it and import it, and it will pop it in for you.
Nice.
And then for the data that we've got that you've just sent through, so I can go add a layer again, a delimited text layer, so that's the CSV, comma delimited. And you'll see file format CSV is the default there because it's most common. And then I'll just go for the one that you've sent me. Open that. And here we go. So it's now given me the CSV structure. As you can see, you've got the observed on, and that's a time stamp. You've got the user, whoever did it. And I'm guessing down the end here is probably those specific fields. And then just go to the geometry definition, and it's auto-populated to say the longitude field and the latitude field are your X and Y. And the key thing here is you'll see that it's got geometry CRS is invalid. So you need to choose a projection. There's numerous ones. The project is default going, as you can see in my bottom right-hand corner here, to 3857, which is a sort of worldwide default. So I'll just pick that WGS 84 3857. A lot of them will talk to each other and will auto reference it. So you could pick a New Zealand NZ 2000 as another reference system. Those coordinate systems are usually work, but I tend to just go for that one because it's always working and it's always the default. So, and once that's selected, the add option becomes available here. So I can go ahead and do that and close it. And it's added the observations for me. And as we can see, it did not like that. So it must be the wrong coordinate system. I'll just try another couple. So let's go double click on it and we'll go source, assign coordinate system. Let's try the New Zealand transverse Mercator. That's probably the most likely because it's in that area. Try again. Still not. All right. I'm going to figure out what the reference is. Try the default again. There we are. Now it's where it should be. So you need to make sure you get that right. I'm fortunate of knowing where Northland is and that's in the right place. So knowing your coordinate system's good for getting that correct. So it looks like iNaturalist is going for 4326. It's WGS 84. So now it's in the right place. Good way to double check as well could be if you've got that data that you've filtered and you're viewing it on iNaturalist itself, just coming back and double checking that a point where you recognize easily is lining up correctly. But I'm assuming that should be the correct one, given that I know this is indeed Northland. Cool, so here are the points now. So there's a few through Te Ahu Mairangi. Yeah, so if you double click on this left-hand side panel has got layers. So that shows exactly what it is that you're looking at. We've played around with a few different maps and you can toggle them to be visible or not. So if I untick the observations here, they'll all disappear. You can also
change the transparency.
You can, yep, and I can go into that if you like in a sec.
Yeah.
You can also change the ordering. So if I drag this down here, I can actually put it under one of my base maps and then they'll be gone. Right. So what's important is if you're importing something, look at where it is, because you could have it not show up and you'd be wondering where on earth it's gone. It could be that it's hiding below a couple of your base maps. Or yeah, so you only really need one base map. I've just done a few here, so I might just leave it to the Esri satellite and get rid of these other ones for simplicity. So you can right click and remove the layers. And I'll drag that back to the top. So if I double click on these now, we'll see got the information, so all the bits and pieces you need to know. That's where sort of referencing information might show up for your map if you're wondering who made it, who you might need to accredit if you want to put up a map somewhere, that sort of thing. Yeah, all those bits and pieces of key information for the data fields, that sort of thing, are highlighted there. Sorry. Source, so it's the name. You can rename it if you like. So I could call this Northland Observations. And then you can go, let's go apply there. Let's just change the name. You can go to symbology. So this is where you can start selecting some other interesting things. You can actually use the plugins to, like you were saying, you had some sort of specialized ticks and crosses that you brought into the Google Maps version. You can do that the same here. And you can change the coloring of them. So if I wanted, I could go, I'd actually like this marker, instead of just being one symbol, I could go, I'll make it categorized, what value, and you can pick a field. So let's go right down to the bottom as you did before. And how did we categorize it? Is the pest control?
It's pest control.
Yep. So if I tick that there, choose a symbol that you would like to do. So we'll just do it as this simple marker, and I'll make the line a bit thicker around it because it's a bit easier to see. So you get the stroke, that's the outline, and then colors. You can change the color of the thing itself if you want to, the dot. And then what I can do is just click classify here, and it will go to in the field. It'll, like you had with on the Google Maps version, look at all the available types of within that field, and it will assign a color within that sort of scheme of symbol that you've selected. So all others, as if I'm assuming that's an NA. The field hasn't been entered. And then you can hit apply there. We'll see that now we can actually look, and if I click the down arrow here, you can see what one's what. And now you can see what's been going on in terms of classification. Yeah, you can essentially do that any way you like. You could do it by year, do it by control status, whatever your observations are, then they're all options to you. And then if you want to turn it into a map, sort of a more formal map, then what you can do is go to the project and make a new print layout. I don't name it at this point. It doesn't really affect what I do. I'll just turn this landscape, go to the page properties and make it portrait. Let's make this full screen, shall we? And then down the side here is all the things you can add on the left-hand side of the screen. So this one here's a map. So if I drag this across the whole A4 page right now, it's going to draw the map in that I've got as it currently looks on the screen in the user interface. So if I just jump to my other screen here, if I were to drag that down a bit and change my scale down the bottom here, let's zoom in. So let's say make it 1 to 15,000. And I'll jump back to my print layout. You can click here and it will say match the extent of the canvas. So shift the screen to view what the map is seeing. And then you can also match the scale. So that's going to now zoom into what the point is centered on as well. So it's now at the same resolution, looking at the same thing. And if you don't like that, you can change the scale here and say, oh, actually, I want it to be a bit more zoomed in. So let's say 10,000. And just let it load and dial it in as you like. Then you can add a few other features. So you could add a scale bar here. And that pops in. There's a lot of different styles you can play with. So if I went from single box, I could go double box. It's another style again. Hollow, it's got nothing in it. I'm actually going to change the size of my map because it's making it quite hard to actually see that. So let's give some white space. There you are. So let's just go for a single box to begin with. And you can change your units if you like. So you can say, I actually want to see that in kilometers, and it will automatically adjust. And what you do, that's at 0.1 units of a kilometer. So it's going to do it in 100-meter intervals. So 0.1, 0.2, all specifiable really. So how much you want to go into it is up to you. So I could say I actually want those to be 1 kilometer intervals, and that's what 2 kilometers is on this map, or a half kilometer. And then this, if you want to add a legend, go to the side here. Again, just drag it to an area wherever you like. So I could put it here, that might fit nicely. That will show the name of the things that you've got showing as it is on the map. You can either auto update it, that'll just include all the layers you've got. So if I go back to the main screen, the layers are shown down here. It'll automatically populate and you can't change what it's showing. If I untick that, I can say, actually, I know what the map is, so I don't need to show that there's a satellite-based map, and I'll take that out. Because how do I even show you what that looks like with a legend anyway? It's so variable. And then I could adjust what these say. So I can say, well, they're all Northland observations. That's what I'm making this map. I'm actually going to right-click and hide that. We don't need to know. Or I'll keep that there, but I'll actually change that and say control status instead, or whatever you might like. If they are automatically populated with lower caps, you want to make it tidy, you could say, actually have that no and tidy those things up. This one hasn't got a name. You can say not classified if you prefer. All those sorts of things. And yeah, the detail it gets pretty in depth. So you could also change how that all looks. So you could say, I'd like the fonts to change. I want the group headings to be bolded instead, so that it's clear that that's all those things. So yeah, those are all in the item properties. There's too many things to list really to go into full detail, but they're all hidden there to play around with. And then you can add a north arrow if you just like some reference. And that, if I have a look, is just scroll down, synced with map as it's currently viewed. This is map 1 is the map that we've added here. So if I change this map, you can change, you see there's rotation by the scale. Let's say I wanted to flip it around, look south, so let's go 180 degrees. That north arrow is going to flip around with it. So those syncing things tying into the maps, you can really customize how you want to make the perspective look for yourself. Yeah, all the main components essentially are on this left-hand toolbar, and it's obviously a very quickly thrown together example, but once you're happy with it, you can then go up the top and export as an image. That warning may, that's all right, I've never had this cause me an issue, but that could be, if something's missing, then this could be what's causing it. I've never run into a problem so far though. And let's just go to documents and just call it test map. And then if I go to my documents, oops, give it a minute. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Export resolution. So you can actually choose how detailed. 300 seems to work just fine. So that will be fine for me. So save. And it's just working away. It should be done now. If I open it now, I've got an image of our map. put together there. The dots are a little bit hard to see, so not the best example, but just trying to go through all the different all the different things. But you can play around and make as many different ones. You were saying transparency. Were you wanting points to be transparent, or?
I just wanted, like beforehand, you built a map with the Wellington property boundaries and stuff on. Was that just the base map? Or
Yeah,
was that like a transparency layer above it?
Yeah. So what I could actually do is an example here. So I'm just trying to move my screen sharing bit because that's causing me some grief. So let's say for the sake of it that I had added the Northland shape. I haven't obviously done that right now. So what you could also do is say you've got an area you're interested in. You go layer, create a layer, and I'll make a new shapefile. Let's call it, I'll just say focus area. And then I'll assign it a polygon. You could do it as points. You could do it as any number of, so you could make it a string. So that's just a line. You could do it point data, like the OMB points that we have here. You can do it as a polygon. It's auto-filled with the default CRS. And then if I hit OK, you can actually add fields like you do with iNaturalist if you like as well, but it's not necessary for this example. And then if I go to this pencil here, I can start editing. And if I see this add polygon becomes an option, or edit. So what I could actually do is go click and click, click, draw a nice shape, just roughly. And then if I right click, that'll finish. And it's going to auto assign an ID. So I'll just click OK. Now I've got a nice Northland. I'll stop editing and just save, so that will make sure that the edit's saved to the shapefile we've made. And if I double click here again, the symbology is an option. I could say I want no fill in the middle, I just want an outline. And I can say I want the outline to be, let's say, white, because it'll be easier to see on a lot of green. I'll make the width a bit wider so it's nice and clear, and hit apply. So now I get an outline of our area. Or if we wanted to, like you had beforehand, I can go, actually, I'll have a fill, but I don't want that to be too intense, so I'll make it white, like we had with our outline. But my opacity, I'm actually just going to drop that down. Let's say I'll have that at 30%, so you're only getting 30% of the full color. And let's see how that looks. So now I've just got a light transparency over there. You can dial that in as you like, and as you'll see, all my points have now got that color. It's because, as I was saying, I've got this above my points, so I'll drag that down and put it below the points, so you can see that those points are. Yeah, so they pop out a bit more on that base map. They're a little bit clearer now.
What I meant actually was the Wellington city property boundary map, where you kind of
right,
road reserve and what's
yes, okay,
and stuff. That's just the base map, is it?
So that would be the same thing. So you can go, I think Wellington City actually has their property data.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have a look at that, you could download it all. And then I believe within that it actually has a field and it has the property type.
Right.
So in that example, the type was either road reserve or any number of other types. So what you could say is road reserve, I'd like to be outlined, just as an example here. You can go categorized, and you could say that the property type. I would show you, but there's so many pieces of data, I'm afraid it might crash if I
Yeah.
because there's so many properties. If I try and do it right now, it might freak out. That shape data for all the properties, and that's if you look up Wellington City Council GIS. I think they've got a whole list of bits of data, and one of them is property information. And you can download that as a shapefile. It will have fields as you've had with the iNaturalist, and one of them is the shape type. So if a comparable example had here categorized, you could categorize by the field of what type of boundary it is. And then let's say I only wanted to show, let's say yes is a road reserve. Then once you've classified it, you can actually go into these specific classifications of the fields, and you can say, oh, actually, I don't want this to be a marker at all. I'll just make that a mask. And I'll do that for each one. And then, okay. And if I apply that, now only the ones that have that type are going to show. So you can toggle and play with it to sort of show those key features that you're interested in. And that's what I sort of did. I went, well, I'll outline the roads as road reserves with this nice bold white line, and I'll just have a sort of transparent fill for any private land, and let that sort of define the areas, if that makes sense.
Very nice.
Yeah. I would show, as I was saying, with the data itself, but when I was doing that, loading it on the resolution, it had so many pieces there, it took a wee while.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So if I wanted to have this on my mobile phone, is there any server component or an app, or would I just need to take a PNG image or something and take that with me? Or
I'm not sure that's easily available. If you wanted to make a map like this, yeah, you can't really just link it in. Yeah, I mean, you can use it to make the different shape files and play around with your shape files. But then in terms of easy access, I'm not so sure how usable it would be. Yeah, it's sort of, I mostly am using it to publish maps. I think that you possibly can get services that can get it mobile, but if you need to pay for them or not, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Worth exploring.
What were you in what capacity were you thinking?
Oh, just like if I'm in the field and I've got this marker for this old man's bed I want to go and find, and I put it, I'm walking along the street, can I just pull this up and go, has that one been spotted already? Is it on road reserve, or is it on private property?
Right. Yeah.
A single source of truth on my phone, I guess.
Yeah. Not sure of an easy way that would be able to that would be super simple to set it up. In terms of that, yeah. But you could possibly use it to tie in, if you were it could be a good way to sort of manage those bits of data, because you could certainly use this. So like the CSV file, for instance, let's say you had the ones you wanted, you could export those and turn it into a KML. And you could use that to pop it into the maps that you have available.
Yeah.
Because you were using, was it Google Maps to show? Are you using that for mobile?
To date, I've used Google Maps on my phone, and sometimes just straight into iNaturalist if I know it's a new one. I do also have ArcGIS Explorer on my phone, so I just Just loading that
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And by default, you can get all the Wellington City Council maps, etc. on that. Once you can set up a free public account as well if it's for like non-commercial usage.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you can pull the property map up on there, so you've got all the local properties and where the road reserves are and stuff. So by default, if you don't have an account, you can go and search for like Wellington property and find it. But if you sign up for an account, it will like default to that.
Yeah.
And then you can just hit the where am I button, and it kind of brings up where you are. So that's kind of useful when you're in the bush and you just want to go, am I kind of close to someone's property boundary here? Or am I sweet just doing it on council reserve land? Or, so just sort of understanding who's owning the land that you're working on.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. That's super.
We need to go
useful to
find a
know.
landlord or an owner to go and talk to.
Yeah. So I think that there is a sort of mobile tie-in with QGIS, but how simple for what you'd like to do would be, or sort of whether or not it needs payment. It might be a bit convoluted for for a brief over in this instance. Yeah.
I'll take a look anyway.
Yeah. But in the capacity for just sort of super useful sort of interpretation and map making and visualizing, you could take any of that data, and I guess you've got, as it currently stands, a number of good data sources. You've got the council layers, you've got observation layers, all these different things. There's certainly a central hub where you could possibly more easily than otherwise might be possible with maps alone sort of tie those in and visualize it. Because I'm not sure, are you able to put boundaries and that sort of thing on maps, or is it mainly just point data, that sort of thing?
On Google Maps, do you mean?
Yeah, sorry, on Google Maps, yeah.
I haven't found, other than the stuff they've got on their base map, I haven't found how to add the council maps on or anything. Whether they're available as like CSVs, it seems quite limited. Especially in terms of what you've just shown me is very powerful. Google Maps, I guess, has the phone interface, which makes it useful because then you can just pull up that on my maps. But it doesn't have the range of options.
Definitely. And you can even get the sort of like the simplest form. There's a lot of it depends on how far you want to dig in terms of the way you visualize, and you can do rule-based visualizations, and so you could really tailor it if you wanted to to get into it. Because I definitely had the same when I was trying to look at things with Google Maps. I found myself getting sort of stuck to just sort of point-based and certain file formats. So you could even use it if you wanted to visualize it as a means to take this data. So if I went to go and export this data, you save it, you can choose what type of file you would like to save it as. So I've found Google will want to use KMLs or that sort of thing, and sometimes you have a data source that's actually got it as something else and you just can't. So it's a good intermediate as well to take it in from one spot and then let you put it into another.
I've actually struggled a bit with the coordinate system trying to get the city council data. So we're using that to do a little bit of machine learning of where Old Man's Beard is.
Right.
And that's in a different coordinate system to what Google Maps uses.
Yeah.
We have to try and translate that. But this looks like it's sort of built in. You can just pull in different systems and overlay them, which I think can be really powerful.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps the data from council is often input, and like it might be in New Zealand Transmocata or something. Even Wellington specific, it might be range or extent limited, and so that could be the case. I think you can even then, if you had data there, so you can go reproject. So if you had one that was in a New Zealand format, you could actually say, okay, so I want this one here, and I want to turn that into the other coordinate system.
Yeah.
And you can select that and save it as a new file. So then now if you want to go and visualize it on the one you know is running on, if you can figure out what your your other one's running it on, it'll actually talk the language it's talking and put it in the right place.
Yeah. So Google's using that World Global, whatever it is, system, which
Yeah.
once you then, New Zealand's drifting by a few centimeters a year or something. So then you have to start looking at when you took the observation in that coordinate system, and how long it is since you took that, and how much you might have drifted, and it's like, oh my god, you kind of think things are in one place, but they're not really.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Have you got any questions, Brian? I know we've been waffling on quite a lot.
Hey guys, sorry. Thank you very much. Very informative. I guess my only question is, I can see in my comment is that I can see how this could be or is very useful. I haven't really, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, I guess, how it's currently being used, but just to speak my mind. So this particular example you've been giving is around Old Man's Beard and whether it's being controlled, and you're just opened it right up to look at all observations back in time. I guess what I'm sort of thinking is, what's going to be the most effective system, so if sorry, I'm just trying to get my brain to work here. If in the last year, like let's say last summer, we've got a list of Old Man's Beard, and we know that these ones have been controlled, right? And then we look this year and we've got this last summer's lot that have been controlled, but what is the follow-up on that previous year's summer? So like this tool going into this last summer, you would have presumably the people doing the work would have said, okay, let's go pull up the list of what was done last summer and revisit those sites. But I'm just trying to imagine how that would be working, and how if I wanted to now sort of look back at the last 2 summers to review the work that has been done, and how would that be most effectively done? Yes, as you can see, I haven't quite actually connected the dots together myself, but it's just what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we showed the observation fields, which is quite a kind of crude mechanism, I think, that iNaturalist has for managing some kind of updates and workflow across observations. In some ways, iNaturalist is sort of going, if you take a photo in a year's time, it's a new observation of it may or may not be the same thing. And it feels like we need a workflow system on top of what we're doing. It would be good if it could somehow use iNaturalist as the underlying basis.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like where is the technology not there yet? Like, if I can think of my personal experience where, someone's taken a photo recently, and well, I've known them, but you, Nigel, obviously had the alert set up, which I now know how to do. But I've gone there and I've now controlled it. So where can I interact? How can I now, because I can't really now feed back into iNaturalist. Now I kind of need to update my own internal system. So how do we keep the whole thing open source?
I just show how I update them. So, we find on this one, we've got these observation fields, and this one's got is the pest controlled. You actually go in there, click, and I've got edit, and so I can go, yes, we've now controlled it, and it can go and add on the date controlled, which would sort of give me some of that base information of, when might we need to go back and look at it.
Yeah, because I would think it would need when was it controlled, and then like an automatic trigger that says like almost like and the person could actually input that, or it could just be a default field that is like in 9 months time. That would be the maximum period of time, I would think. If it were controlled in March, it should start being revisited by once it's starting to come alive again in spring, and then somewhere that's where I'm getting a notification saying, okay, let's go to that thing again.
Yes, we've been using this date controlled field and follow up. So sometimes you might just tackle something and go, I'm not quite sure I got it all. Might need to come back in a month's time and just check, sort of thing.
So in short, you're telling me it's all there. It's already built.
The data is, but not the flow in the process. There's nothing going to go and look at those and go, yeah, you need a bit of logic around it. Go, yeah, you actually need to go and follow up and go and check these things next month. Or yeah, so what sometimes we've tackled, we might cut the vines but not pasted the root yet. So it's sort of that level that we don't have that kind of ongoing process of understanding it. Now, Rob did point me at this weedmanager.nz app that I haven't had a chance to look at yet.
Could be quite useful, I think, in terms of just the fact it seems similar to the traps.nz, where you can create an account and assign yourself or join yourself up to a project, create a project and have people join to the project, and then sort of add observations and interact with those observations. I think I haven't had a huge play with it myself, but at a glance, that seems to be the sort of status of it. I don't know how that data could be exported, but it could be a nice mobile system. Yeah,
and it seems to have sort of map out an area. It might be not sort of at the plant level like iNaturalist. There's this 15-meter block with control job maybe and it kind of you log what if you're using the herbicide or what control method you've used for it. So it has some of that sort of intelligence built in.
Yeah.
But I've sort of seen how useful that is and how much it does of that kind of workflow and follow up and.
Yeah, I think in the example we've gone through today, it's maybe more applicable to you've gotten a bunch of data from whatever source it comes from, and visualizing that for either sort of a storytelling and engagement aspect, or maybe just an internal sort of if I know you've got sort of larger project areas you're working on, you could maybe use this as a means to visualize and see where things are sweeping as a wave and have a little bit of strategy, perhaps joining dots or that sort of thing. Seems, at least in its desktop application the most the most applicable at this
Yeah.
point.
That's really good summary. Yeah. I have been talking as well with a chap who's been doing a lot of wild ginger control up in Auckland and has built his own kind of workflow system. So I'm just keen to link back in with him and see what that has as well. So I think there isn't any answer to your question at the moment, Brian, but it is sort of on top of my mind for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just I feel like it shouldn't be that hard. I just trying to get my head around how it can. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what could be just yeah, I guess maybe just becoming a bit more useful. So just to be clear, did you say I could edit someone else's observation there? Oh, okay, cool.
You can edit their observation fields and add new observation fields.
Yeah,
It's a little bit clunky, and I think you can only do it on desktop.
yeah,
I've also sort of had a bug recently where when I add new projects on my mobile, it's not syncing to the server, so it's not as foolproof as I would like it at the moment.
yeah.
It is doable.
I probably actually have to run. Sorry.
Yeah, great. No, we've gone over. Thanks a lot for your time.
No, that's all right. No worries. Hope it was useful. And yeah, if
that's
you
great.
are trying to toy around and play around with it to do some maps, then yeah, feel free to
Yeah, we'll definitely.
give me a yell if you have any queries. If you're trying to figure something out, there's a lot of bits in those interfaces, so it's easy to get lost amongst it all. So
And I'll get the video out as well.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Really interesting. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, thank you. Good to talk.
Thanks, Brian.
Cool.